Hi everyone, my name is Allie. I'm the marketing assistant at ADVYON, and I'm also a former public speaking club president. I studied communications in college and was the head of my own public speaking club for a year, and during that time I gave a lot of speeches. Public speaking is something I've always enjoyed, but when it came time for us to give our video speech, I found this to be very challenging. It was so hard for me to give a speech without knowing how people in the room were reacting. Were they really engaged with what I was saying? I know a lot of my fellow marketers are having to present more and more of their ideas to team members or to people outside their company over Zoom or other video conferencing platforms. And I'm sure that many of you are finding the same difficulty. How can I engage with people over distance? So I thought that today we could go over 3 simple ways to make your next Zoom presentation even better. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing that you want to do when you're getting ready to do a Zoom presentation is to know your surroundings. Take note of your physical background. Of course, no one has a perfect home office setup, but we do what we can to make sure that the distractions around us are minimal. For instance, is your lighting too bright or too dim? Is there distracting artwork in the background? Is your unmade bed sitting behind you? Turn your camera on and take note of all of these things and see what might take away the focus from you as you're giving the presentation. Next, take note of the other distractions. If you're working at home with roommates or family members, make sure that they know the time you will be presenting. Make it a clear rule that you should not be interrupted during this time. Make sure your pets are in the other room and listen to hear if you hear any distracting noises. Then prepare for if distractions do arise. It's important to prepare something for your audience to do while you're away. This is a great time to present them with information like a chart or a graph for them to study, or to give a question for everyone to talk about amongst themselves while you're gone. This way everyone stays engaged even though you're not physically in the room. My next tip is that you should practice the presentation in conditions close to the actual event. My top piece of advice for any student giving a presentation was to go to the classroom where they would be presenting and give their speech. This creates a really strong mental picture of what the actual event will be like. And if your practice speech goes well, then your brain knows the real thing can go just as great. So it's no different with a Zoom presentation, except that you need to practice in front of a camera. So make sure that you're really familiar with your equipment. Know which audio input you'll use during the meeting, know how to turn on your webcam. One thing that you really need to be aware of when you're talking to a camera is that the webcam is a substitute for eye contact. Now, of course, eye contact is very important in your speech because it's one of the main ways that you connect with your audience. When you're presenting to a camera, you need to make sure, just with any other speech, that you don't spend too much time looking down. So a couple of great suggestions that I saw to help out with this were 1, placing the main bullet points of your speech on a physical sticky note just right under the webcam so that it's easy to have the most important information right where you're looking to your audience. I also saw a suggestion that you can actually move the speaker boxes in Zoom to be placed under that webcam so that you can see those faces almost like you're in the room together. And of course, the only way that you'll know you're making a sufficient amount of eye contact with your camera, that all of the audio is working correctly, and all of those other little details for your video presentation is to record the speech. You can do this by hosting a sample Zoom meeting with your family or friends, or you can just record your speech through your webcam. Our final tip is to prepare for engagement in your speech. Time lags and internet difficulties make it really hard for people to contribute to a group discussion in a Zoom meeting. So, a good idea is to prepare your strategy for handling questions in advance of your meeting. Some good ideas for questions and answers are to just ask your audience members to put all of their questions in the chat, have them raise their digital hand when they have a question. There may also be customizable options like creating a Q&A box for your meeting. Or just build breaks into the speech to ask your audience directly if they have any questions, answer them, and then go back into the speech. All of these options will help you not be interrupted during the speech and make sure that everyone has their questions answered in an organized and timely manner. Next, to maximize engagement, it's really important to nail your introduction. When I advise people about writing a speech, I say write your introduction down word for word, practice it over and over, and everything else can be bullet points. That introduction is so crucial to setting you off on the right path for your presentation that a lot of times the rest of it will flow completely smoothly if you really nail those first couple of sentences. So, a few interesting ways to start your speech that I always find to be very effective are asking a question, sharing a statistic, telling a joke, or starting with a story. You notice that I started this speech by telling a story about my days as president of a public speaking club. I find stories to be one of the best ways to hook your audience in, but no matter which of these options that you choose, make sure that it relates to the rest of the presentation and that the tone fits. For instance, if I was giving a quarterly report, I probably wouldn't begin by telling a joke because those two tones are kind of mishmashed. One final thing to consider when you're trying to engage your audience is thinking about your slides. Now, if you have to use slides in your presentation, you want to make sure that they're readable no matter what device your audience is on. Some people may be calling into this meeting from their phone, so if you have a lot of words on that tiny screen, it will be very difficult to read. One of the best examples of simple, very effective slides that I have found are the slides for TED Talk presentations. You can see examples of these online and even rules about how the speakers make these slides. Focus your slides on important points and data. There should be only one point per slide, and it should be in an easy-to-read, large-scale font. If you're going to use an image, one image per slide is also sufficient. And I always recommend that you use a picture of real people, if at all possible, as opposed to clip art, because we like to see other people's faces. It's more engaging for your audience. So there you have it. Those are my 3 tips for an excellent Zoom meeting: knowing your surroundings, practicing in realistic conditions, and preparing for engagement can all make a big difference in your speech. Please let us know if you have any other ideas that have helped you out when you're learning to present over Zoom or other video conferencing platforms. We can't wait to hear from you. Alright, thank you so much for tuning in to this special Marketing Monday, and I hope to see you guys again next week. Goodbye!